ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. ربي زدني علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah, today we are going to cover ayah number 19 and 20 from Surah Baqarah, and we will start with the word by word meaning, inshallah ta'ala. So I'm just gonna go over the word by word meaning first. We listen to the recitation. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim.
أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين.
أو or so it's continuing from the previous ayah, but we'll see that in when we are going over the meaning. أو or قصيب. قصيب, ka is mean like something, like when you say this is like that, so ka has that sort of a meaning. And sayyib is means very heavy rain, a heavy rain or a torrential rain that is accompanied by clouds and very heavy rain and everything. So that is the meaning of sayyib. Okay, minas samai, from the sky, samai, sky, and sama is also used for clouds or a wide expanse of space above us. So technically it means the sky, but something like a very wide space above us. Fihi, in it, dhulumatun, are darknesses. So this is a plural. Dhulm is a darkness and dhulumat is a plural, darknesses. So there are many kinds of darknesses in there. Fihi dhulumatun wa ra'adun, and thunder. Rad is thunder. Wa barqun, and lightning. So in a rainstorm, what is typically there? There are typically three things in a rainstorm. There is darknesses, there is lightning, there is thunder. Right? So rad is thunder and barq is lightning. Yaj'aluna, they do or they put. Yaj'aluna, here in this context it means they put. And yaj'aluna, una means plural, so they put. Asabi'ahum. Asabi'ahum refers to the fingers, right? So what they put is they put their fingers fi adanihim, in their ears. Adan is a ear, and adan is the plural of it, two ears, right? And adanihim, their ears. Minas sawa'iqi, from the thunderclaps, or it means like thunder and lightning, and it's a plural of sawa'iqi. Sawa'iq is a plural of saika. So saika is a thunderclap and sawa'iq is the plural, meaning many thunderclaps, lots of lightning, or lightning that strikes with the thundering sound. So there's some lightning that strikes without any sound. Sawa'iq is like a lightning which has a very terrifying sound as well. Hadar al-maut. Hadara, from the fear of, maut is death. So, and wallahu, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, muhitum, he encompasses, he covers, he's totally wrapped them. Like muhit has that sort of meaning, to like completely encompass something, so to completely cover something. Bil kafirin, the disbelievers. So here, this is a parable that we are learning in these two ayat. So in this, Allah Ta'ala is telling us, so there's a picture that is being painted, and then we will, first we'll see what the picture is, and then we will go over its implications. So in this ayah, Allah Ta'ala is telling us, or like a rainstorm from the sky, and within this rainstorm, there is darkness, there is thunder, and there's lightning. And they put their fingers in their ears against the thunderclaps in dread of death. They're in fear of death, and because of that, when this lightning striking, they're putting their fingers in their ears. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is encompassing of the disbelievers. And then the next ayah number 20. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير.
Yakadu, almost. Al-barqu, barq, we had it in the previous as well. The lightning. Yaqtafu, it snatches away. The lightning almost snatches away. What does it snatch away? Absarahum, their sight, their capacity, their ability to see. Like basara is to see, and like one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also al-basir, like he sees everything, right? So basara, to see. So the lightning almost snatches away their sight. Kullama, whenever, ada'a, it flashes. Da'a is to flash, a kind of a light which has some heat in it as well. Like nur, as opposed to nur, there are two words used very commonly for light. Da'a is a kind of light which has some heat in it, and nur is a cool kind of a light. So whenever it flashes, this light flashes, which has some kind of a heat in it as well. Lahum, for them, mashaw. Mashaw is to walk, and mashaw for plural. U at the end says plural, so they walk. So whenever a light flashes for them, they walk. Fihi, in it. Wa idha, and when. Adulama, it darkens. Alayhim, on them. Qamu, qamu, they stand still. Like they don't move then, right? So like from iqama, to stand, to maintain that standing position. So they stand still. They don't even move. They're like when it gets dark. Walau, and if Sha'Allahu, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had willed, la dhahaba, then certainly lam here is lam taqid, meaning like it is emphasizing something. Like in a text, you write something, you make it bold and underline and everything. Like so, lam does this lam taqid does that kind of a job. It makes something, emphasizes something. Okay. So, and if Allah had willed, certainly, definitely, no doubt that dhahaba, he would have taken away bisam'ihim, their hearing. Samat is hearing, like Basir is Allah Ta'ala's name, which shows that he's the all-seeing. As-Sami is his name, which shows all hearing, right? So Sama'a is to hear, and bisam'ihim, their hearing. So here it refers to obviously the hearing of these people. So he would have, if Allah will, he would have certainly taken away their hearing, wa absarihim, and their sight. Inna Allah, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ala, on, kulli shay'in, everything, qadir, is all powerful. So here in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that the lightning almost snatches away their sight, and every time it lights this way on them, they walk in it a little bit, but then darkness comes over them and they stand still as soon as the darkness comes. And if Allah had willed, he would have taken away their hearing and their sight. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very competent over all the things. So first, as we go over the meaning of these ayat, let's just look at the previous two ayat. So here, these two parables came together. These are the first time the parables come in the Quran from the beginning in the chronological order. And the first, so there are two groups of people being talked about. And then ayah number 19 starts with or, right? So let's just look at what it was said in the previous ayah. So it said that the example of the one who kindled a fire. Before this, actually, Allah Ta'ala is telling us about different kind of people who believed. Then he told us about people who disbelieved, and there are people who are hypocrites, who make fun of the believers, who try to conspire against them. They want to harm them, but they pretend to be their friends. So Allah Ta'ala told us about those people. And then he's giving us these two examples to explain to us what is the condition of these people. And for these different kinds of people who are disbelievers or hypocrites and everything. So the first, there are two groups of people that he talks about. The first group is in this ayah number 17 and 18, and the second group is in 19 and 20. So in 17 and 18 said this, their example is that of one who kindled a fire, but when it illuminated what was around him, Allah took away their light and left them in darkness so they could not see. They are deaf, dumb, and blind, so they will not return to the right path. So if you imagine in that scene what was happening, there's one scene. In that scene, what was happening is there's a person who came, there's a lot of darkness around. There's a person who came, who kindled a fire, who made a lot of effort and kindled a fire, made a little fire so that it brought light all around him and everything. And then as we zoom out and see that it's not just him, there are more people around who were in darkness. But when they saw the darkness, they didn't want to benefit from the light. They didn't appreciate the light, right? And they turned away from it. And when so and which is a part here which is not mentioned, but it is implied. So they turned away and they didn't appreciate it and everything. In fact, they worked against it. So Allah took away their light and left them in darkness, so they could not see. And they are deaf, dumb, and blind. They will not return to the path. So these are refer to the disbelievers or the hypocrites, in whom disbelief has taken very deep roots. Disbelief has gone deep inside them, and they have very little inclination towards Islam. We could have at that time we could think of them as like disbelievers like Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab. They turned completely and away, and they opposed it. In fact, they put their efforts in opposing Islam, and they hated it with a passion. And it also refers to the hypocrites like Abdullah ibn Ubay, who pretended to be Muslim for worldly motives. And so he had no interest in Islam, but he was only pretending to be Muslim for the sake of worldly motives and to get certain political power and things like that. And some scholars have also interpreted this as this was the light in this, the person kindling the light was Musa alayhi salam, and the guidance the that light that he kindled was the guidance to light the life of Bani Israel and their life and surroundings. But majority of descendants of Israel, what they did was they turned their back on this light, and because of this, they brought upon themselves the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those for whom their prophet had taken all the trouble, they failed to appreciate his efforts or benefit from the light. And in the context of the time of Medina, when these ayat was revealed, it also goes for what was happening with the Prophet ﷺ. So this happened at the time of Musa alayhi salam, and then it was happening at the time of Prophet ﷺ, that people were turning away. And then those people in whose heart it was deep, deep, deep disbelief, and they, in terms of Bani Israel, their deprivations and their miseries are mentioned in great length in Gospel and the Torah as well. And they're also mentioned many places in the Quran, as we will see, even in Surah Baqarah many times. But here, their condition is depicted in the form of like a caravan of a people who are deaf, dumb, and blind. They are groping and wandering in a dark, cloudy night. Like they can neither listen to any call, nor can they respond to anyone. So what does deaf, dumb, and blind mean? So they are not. When these people who have rejected their own faith, who rejected and they reject any kind of faith or light that is around them, what happens is they cannot listen to any call. Even if somebody's saying something beneficial, they just don't get it. Or nor can they respond to anyone. Like they have senses. Allah Ta'ala has given them the senses, and they should be able to respond, but they're not able to respond anymore because of what they've done to themselves. Right? And nor can they benefit from any landmarks around the way. So a believer looks at the same sky, the same trees, the same things happening in his or her life, and draws closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas these people, because they are deaf, dumb, and blind, what is happening is those same things which are happening around them, their senses should have been the way to guide them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to their senses, like through what they hear, through what they see, through what they feel, through, like all of our senses are there, and they should have guided them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like how are the different fruits coming out of the same soil and different flavors are coming out? How is this happening? How is everything running so perfectly? How is my body behaving so perfectly? How are things going on? If somebody wants to ponder, there's a lot of science around, but they don't benefit from even those landmarks around the way. So this was the first image that was depicted in ayah number 17 and 18 of people who are very, very deep in disbelief. Now in ayah number 19 and 20, there's another picture being painted, and Allah Ta'ala is telling us now, this is again in the second parable, again it's a night time. There is heavy rain which is falling from the sky, and each drop is like heavy, like it's like almost feels like the size of a fist, and it's the heaviest kind of rain that can fall. In fact, it's like literally blinding, right? And minas sama means that it is falling from right above them. It's not heavy at a distance. Like sometimes when we are driving, we see that there is some rain where we are, but we see that there is a very heavy rain at a distance. But this is not like that. They are in the heaviest rain. And in that heavy rain, there are levels of, there are different things that is going on, right? There are layers of darkness. And what are the layers of darkness? First, it is the night. So it's already dark. And there are a lot of clouds. So cloud cover gives a lot of darkness as well. So, and no moonlight is coming through because a lot of cloud cover, and there's heavy rain. So when we are driving, for example, if it's a very, very heavy rain, then Even if the wipers of our windscreen are on, they still like it's very hard to see. So it's like such a heavy rain, and it is that. So there are layers of darknesses, and at the same time, it's not just darkness. There is very loud thunder, and every now and then a lightning is striking, and they're seeing all this lightning around them, and everything, and they're sticking their fingers in the ear. And the word for fingertips in the ear, usually when somebody tries to close their ears, we put our fingertips on our ear, or try to we insert a little bit of our fingertips. Like the fingertip is called anamil, but here the word used is not anamil. The word uses asabi'ahum, right, and which refers to fingers, meaning just the use of this word shows that they're so terrified by this sensory overload that is happening all around them, that they're trying to stick their whole fingers. They're trying to stick their whole fingers in the air. They just definitely, they don't want to listen to this. They're so terrified and everything. They just want to insert their fingers and feel like, no, 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 that's not, I don't want to hear any of it. And sawa'iq here, it's the kind of lightning that strikes the ground and it immediately creates an explosion. And this keeps on happening. So in this scene, what's happening is it's raining, there's thunder, there's lightning, and there's lightning happening in the sky. And every once in a while, what happens is there is like at a little distance here, a little distance to the right, a little distance to the left, there is a kind of lightning that's striking the ground and immediately creating explosion. So there's like explosions happening here and there as well. So it is like, and then they're scared of that because this lightning is striking and there's explosions all around. They're putting their fingers and they're like having, they can't see very well. There's a lot of darkness. There's no shelter, and they're almost like a person is so scared that it's almost like experiencing partial insanity and everything, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds them that he is, he has encompassed them. He's talking, and by this thing, by telling us that wallahu muhitum bil kafirin, Allah Ta'ala is telling us that this ayah he's talking about, the example that he's giving is about the disbelievers. The people who are being talked about here are the people who are the disbelievers. And then what happens is that when a little bit of lightning comes, and it shows them like it's so dark, but just when a little bit of lightning comes, they're able to see a little bit, and what they do is they walk a little bit and they see, and then all of a sudden they see that where they were walking was a cliff, and they would have fallen down, and then this, and the lightning stops, and then they can't see again, it's all dark again, and now they're like super scared. We don't know which way to go because there was a cliff in front, but they don't know to the right or left. If they walk, they'll fall. So now they're waiting for another light because they're literally stuck, and they're like standing still, scared, like what to do now, right? And if Allah willed, he would have taken away all their hearing, and he is over everything, all powerful. So in this scene, what is happening in this scene? In the scene of this heavy rain and everything, what is going on? So what is happening is the rain, first of all, is symbolic of the revelation. And coming from the sky means that this revelation is coming from the sky. So the rainstorm, which is coming, it's like the heavy pour which is coming, is the wahi, is the Quran, which is coming down at that time when these ayat are being revealed. So the wahi is coming down, and this wahi, this rain, is a great blessing for mankind. And thunder and lightning here are the meaning of the warnings in the Quran, because Quran gives very clear and very explicit warnings. People before us, in the books before us, what people had made the changes was they had removed all the mentions of the Day of Judgment and the warnings. But Quran, Allah Ta'ala took the responsibility of preserving it himself, and those mentions obviously could not be removed even if anybody tried. So these, the darkness, and so there's so many warnings in the Quran, and thunder and lightning refer to them. And the darknesses here mean the difficulties in the path of the truth. So whenever there is a path of the truth, it is natural that it will come with some difficulties. It will not be just an easy tread. There will, by its very nature, it will have some difficulties. So in this example, as opposed to the previous one, this is talking about hypocrites, but it is a lighter version of nifaq, right? So the previous ones were who were like, they had a deep disbelief. They are now a gone case. Like nothing's. They are opposing. They're doing nasty things. They only worry about the worldly benefits. They have no desire for any truth at all. And if anybody tells them the truth, they get irritated, they get frustrated, they want to harm that person even. So, or they see somebody doing truthful things, they just don't like it, they can't handle it. That was the previous example in 17 in the previous two ayat. But here now in 19 and 20, it is a lighter version of nifaq, right? So these people, they did recognize the truth of Islam. Sometimes they even want to be genuine Muslims, but the worldly interest, they would not, the worldly interest came in their way and they would not allow them to do so. So because, so basically they did not believe in accepting a faith which required them to make sacrifices. So they like a faith which is all like you can do rituals, you can do things, but don't ask me to make any sacrifices. Like if I have to go and like do a party in the name of religion and everything, they're all fine. But if the religion asks them to sacrifice something or do something which their nafs, which is heavy on their nafs, then they don't want to do it. And it is very hard on them, right? So it is those kind of people, and they remain in, because they don't want to recognize the truth and everything. They are in this perpetual state of hesitation and doubt and on what to do and everything. Like a man who's caught in a thunderstorm, who moves forward a step or two when there's a flash of lightning, but then when it is over, again gets stuck, right? So, and then here, what's happening is when lightning is there, there is some light and they can see a little, but then with the sound is also the element of fear. Both the things are going together. And what they're doing is by putting their, when they have the scary sounds and visuals and everything around, by putting fingers in their ear, they feel they are safe. But what they don't realize is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, it's a warning that they are not beyond the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like when a lion is about to attack someone and they put finger, like they cover their eyes. That is not, that means like, it's not that they have, the lion's not just going to disappear just because they've covered their eyes. The reality is what the reality is, and it is not going to stop them from whatever comes if they just cover their eyes. Similarly, if they put their, if a disbeliever or a hypocrite, they're putting their ears in their fingers in the ears and try to not listen to the sound, doesn't mean what is happening is not happening, right? And it's a warning for them that like that they are not beyond the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He can, as and when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, he can take away their sight and their hearing, and he can even destroy them totally. He has them under full control, right? They feel that just by stopping the sound from coming to their ears, they will escape it, but they can't escape it, right? And they're walking when the lightning shines, and they're standing still when there's darkness. This conveys like their wonderment and their baffled state, like they're so confused and everything. The light of the Quran is dazzling their eyes. They're baffled and they don't know what to do, right? And if what happens here is, one thing to understand is that if Allah wanted, he could have, Allah is saying that he is fully covering them. And in the next ayah, he tells that if he wanted, he could have taken away their hearing and their seeing, meaning he has not completely taken it away yet, meaning that they have not been completely denied the accepting of truth. Like the truth is there. They're in a better position. As scary as this situation sounds, they're in a slightly better situation than the previous group, meaning there's still a chance for them. Like they walk a little bit, then they're like no 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 no, and then they walk a little bit and they're like no 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 no, and then they it's like if they keep denying it, so but the chances are not going to stay forever. If they keep denying the truth, then it is not going to work well for them. It is not going to do well for them. And and this, we know that the whole nature of hypocrisy is that, like nifaq comes from nafaka comes from this lizard who has two holes in a desert. Like the lizard always keeps two holes open, and then it goes from one, comes out of the other. And that's what a munafiq does. A munafiq likes to keep both the doors open because they want benefits from everything, right? And like they say there's a saying that a person who's a guest of two homes, stays hungry, because the first place he thinks that, okay, I'll go and eat at the second place I have to visit, so I'm not going to eat here. The second place he goes to visit, the people think, okay, he's already been to the other other place, so he might have eaten. They don't feed him, so he just stays hungry, right? So it's like, and there are many other sayings like that, like a person who's on two boats, who tries to get on two boats will drown, like, and everything, right? So what they don't realize is people who are doing this, they're harming themselves rather than doing anything to anybody else. They're harming themselves. And before Wahi came, it was like what Wahi does is it shows us who is what, right? It shows us that before Wahi comes, everybody in a society looks very similar. Like, for example, in the Makkan society, Abu Bakr and Abu Jahl, they were both very generous people in terms of giving charity and everything. So they would all be very like, like they would all seem like similar people. They're both generous, they're both good and everything. But when the Noor of Wahi comes, then truth becomes evident. Like when light comes, before light, if somebody were to feel something, a rope and a snake might might feel very similar when you can't see something. But when light comes, then a person can easily see what is a rope and what is a snake, right? So that's the difference becomes very clear. So also happens with the Quran, that before studying the Quran, we are all the same, and we feel that people are all similar. There's no like there's not much difference in people, and there's some good and some bad in people and everything. But after studying the Quran gives us a light, a way to see more. Quran helps us to see more, and we know, we start to know and feel, and Allah Ta'ala shows us what is exactly in different kinds of hearts. Yes, we cannot know what is in the hearts, but Allah Ta'ala shows us some signs, and we are able to protect ourselves from certain people, or we are able to know that certain people are more trustworthy than others, right? And what happens with somebody who's used to darkness, like, and what happens is that when somebody has been in darkness for a long time, if somebody switches on the light, even though it helps them to see, but they get irritated by the lights, right? They become angry if somebody switched on the light, because like it's like a bit like dazzling to them and everything, right? So, and also what happens then is, this also happens with the light, where some people appreciate the light. When light comes and they were in darkness, they're like, somebody comes and switches on the light, like, oh, thank you so much, like I can see, I wanted to do something, and this, like, let's say I was in my I was sitting in my office at my home, at my or in my room, and I was trying to read something, and the lights were off. But it became, I started studying at, let's say, the afternoon time, and I was studying. It became evening, and it became darker. I didn't realize that, but I'm still trying to struggle as the light is going down, and I'm trying to read, and then all of a sudden, my daughter comes and just she switches on the light, and she's like, and then she's like, Mama, it's dark. Don't hurt your eyes. I'm like, oh, thank you for switching on the light, right? I can see better now and everything, so I can appreciate the light more. As opposed to that, certain people, they want to just sleep. They want, and they're just like, if somebody switches on the light and they're like, okay, get up, or somebody removes the curtains and says, no, it's like it's almost 11 or 12 in the morning, like you need to get up now, and they just don't want to get up, they'll get irritated and angry and upset, right? So similarly, what happens is when Wahi came down, at that time, and also now, when people will come in contact with the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will see two kinds of attitudes. We will see that some people will develop extreme love for it. Some people will recognize it. Some people will want to embrace it, and they will do what they can to get closer to it, to develop their connection with it. As opposed to that, there are others who will develop extreme hatred towards it, and not just towards it, they will develop a hatred towards anybody who tries to follow it, anybody who tries to get closer to it. And sometimes we'll wonder, why does this person hate me? I didn't do anything to harm them or anything. But then they recognize that, and that light, and the light irritates them. That light, makes them upset and everything, right? And and that but whatever they can do, Islam will always be there. Light will be there all around. There will be light all around. And the quality of a munafiq, the characteristic of a munafiq is that they're blind to the good qualities of other people and their own faults. So a munafiq they don't like to see the mirror, right? And because, like for example, a person who doesn't see the mirror, they just don't like to look at the mirror, and they like to feel that just because they can't see any dirt, they are all clean. So they feel like they're all clean, and then all the faults are in the other person. But when the light comes and when the light exposes it, that it shows what is right and wrong. That's why light irritates them a lot, because it shows them they don't want to see it, right? And that irritates them. If something shows them their own light, or if something or someone, the behavior of someone shows how they are lacking. If somebody else is, let's say, doing a lot of good, and they could have done all that kind of good as well, but they're not doing it, then it irritates them, because it shows somebody else doing that good shows their own darkness. It comes out, and that that troubles them. As opposed to that, a believer, what happens to a believer? A believer feels frustrated where there are a lot of darknesses. Like, a believer likes light. A believer likes to move towards the light and everything. Right, and we should all make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like there are duas in Sunnah as well, to cure and to make our hearts pure from hypocrisy, from nifaq. May Allah ta'ala take nifaq, like keep us away from nifaq and keep nifaq away from us, for all kind. And if we think about these different kinds of people, and if we study the seerah, we will see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never felt sorry for Bilal. Although if we look at the seerah, what was happening to Bilal? Bilal was going through so much hardships. He was like, like the hot burning stones, coal. They were put on his chest, and they would like, and he would be made to lie on a hot sand. And even then, whatever he was going through, the Prophet ﷺ never felt sorry for him. Why did he not feel sorry for Bilal? Because he could see the reward of Bilal in the end. What is Bilal going to get out of it? The Prophet ﷺ saw that. And then, because he could see that, he didn't feel sorry for him. In fact, he felt like good news to you for what you're going through, and how you are embracing the light, right? And in this in this example, the imagery that continues is that we see that when lightning strikes, it almost takes away their sight. Not totally, but it almost takes away. So it's all dark, and then lightning, you could see for a second. It's like a flash of a camera that you just see for a second. And like we said, they feel that they just realize that they were going to fall off a cliff, and they take a step back. And then they're waiting for the next explosion so that they can take a step. So it's like the image, what this is showing is that it's a very dangerous place. They're at a very dangerous place. As opposed to that, if we look at the example of a believer, when the Prophet, whether we're talking about Prophet Musa alayhi salam, or whether we're looking at the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when there is light, when he kindles up this light, what do the believers do? They go towards the light. They like to stay in the light. They like to see through that light, right? And that's so they are not in that dangerous place anymore, as opposed to a disbeliever who's in complete darkness, and a hypocrite who is at a very dangerous place. He could fall off, and he could be saved. There is a chance, but again, it's a very dangerous place to be in. So it is better to obviously move towards the light. And also, like we said, that this da'a is a kind of lightning which has some heat into it, some thing into it. And so these people, they are not a lost cause, as we said, but they are almost as good as blind, deaf, and mute, but just not quite, right? So had Allah wanted, he could have taken away their hearing, their sight, just like the previous people. And Allah Ta'ala is all powerful, meaning that he might do it. He might just do it. But it's like a very, very strong warning for those people. And that's the thing in the Quran. The Quran is not soft when it comes to warnings of the Day of Judgment. It has a very strong tone, right? And entire passage, if we look back at this entire passage of the Quran, where it talks about the disbelievers, and starting from ayah number 6, inna alladhina kafaru sawa'un alayhim anzartahum am lam tundirhum walahum yu'minun, right? So those who disbelieve, and starting from that part, this whole passage about the people who disbelieve, and it's the same to them whether you want them or you don't want them, and they do these things, they make fun, they try to pretend that they're believers and everything. And then it gives very strong warnings. And these two scenes which have been described, they're very first of all, these scenes are very strong. Then also in this through these scenes, listening is highlighted. Like it is same for them whether you want them or not. They're not going to listen. Meaning, if for us to get closer, we need to listen. And listening is mentioned again and again in different parts in the Quran, that we need to understand through our listening. Another thing here is that the mention of the Day of Judgment, if we look at the Jewish, if we compare it to the Jewish scholarship at that time, what they had done was they had almost removed the mention of Day of Judgment, right? And when they had removed all this mention of the Day of Judgment, what was happening was these ayat of the Quran which were coming and talking about the Day of Judgment, reminding them of the Day of Judgment. So you can think of something like they hid some things from their book, and the common people of the Jewish community, they didn't know what was hidden. The scholars knew what they were hiding, and then the Quran keeps coming and telling what they're hiding, and it's like, okay. And every time they try to do something, and the Quran comes and counters it. They are in the state of confusion. They don't know how to counter the Quran. They're trying different measures. They're trying to defeat the truth by making sophisticated comments, by making fallacious arguments, but it's not working. And it's like frustrating them even more. They keep getting exposed. They try to do something, and then they try to do something when they're by themselves. They try to do something. They try to plan and plot something, and Quran is revealed, which tells what they are doing. And they're like, nobody told them. How did they come to know? And they can't, even to themselves, they can't deny that this is the wahi, because there was nobody around to know. And yet Allah Ta'ala keeps informing the believers what they're planning. And that frustrates them even more, because they were planning some things, they were planning and plotting. Their plans were foolproof according to them, and they were going to like destroy the believers, or do this, or create a rumor, or this and that. They do all these things, and yet Quran keeps coming down and spoiling all of their plans, and Quran keeps coming down and showing what they're doing and everything. Right? So it frustrates them every time Quran comes down and tells something either about the Day of Judgment or about their own things. They are more and more frustrated. Also, the Quran by itself was very frustrating, because they were fully conscious of the threat that coming of Islam or emergence of Islam posed both to Judaism and Christianity. Because if Islam gets they understood that this is the truth, and if the truth gets more and more powerful, because obviously they will lose their stronghold that they have created. So they looked at it as a threat, and they wanted to counter this threat, but the strategy that they adopted to achieve this purpose was like they told like their followers, and they worked with that you keep following your own religion, you keep following your own forefathers' ways of doing things, while you keep at the same time you try to keep stressing as much as possible that there's a harmony between us and Muslims, and we are all, it's all good and everything, and we are from the same thing, we are from the same space and everything, like we have the same message and everything, and but don't believe in it. Like, so basically what they presented themselves as believers, that we are just like you guys. We are like Muslims. We believe in Allah, and we believe in the Day of Judgment. We believe in the prophets and everything. But when they were asked to believe, like the other Muslim, to accept faith, very few of them, like Abdullah ibn Salam was a Jewish rabbi who did accept Islam right away, but there were very few of them who did that. Many of them, when they were asked to believe, like, okay, if this is the same message, you understand that if we are worshipping the same Allah, and we are the Prophet ﷺ is from the same chain of prophets and everything, then why don't you accept Islam and become Muslim? Then they would get angry, and they would start abusing and ridiculing the Muslims for believing and following the Prophet, because they had no other they had nothing to counter. What do they do? How do they had no dalil, they had no intellectual ground to stand on and do, because then when somebody is lying, what happens is, if the truth keeps coming in their face, and they have to there's only so much that they can counter with arguments, because with logical arguments, because a logical argument will show their defeat, because they don't have much of logical argument to stand on. So what such a person will do is, then they will resort to anger, abuse, ridiculing the person, creating rumors about the person, and all these kind of things, right? So what they did was, they on the face of it, they would try to show that we are in the same thing, but they would say to the people, stick to your own ways, and keep giving the impression at the same time that you're not much different from the Muslims. So what they really wanted was they wanted the Muslims to forego their claim to be true believers, and they wanted to validate their own position as believers. So, and but the Quran categorically states that the truth will not cannot compromise its stance, and those who want to believe, they have to believe honestly and sincerely without any reservation, like other Muslims have believed. Otherwise they may follow any other path, and they want to follow and face, and if they follow whatever they follow while knowing the truth, then they will have to face the consequences of what they do. And one last thing to add here is that the picture of this hypocrite who moves towards Islam, when who moves a little bit ahead when there is light. Some scholars have also said that, extrapolated that a hypocrite, what he does is as soon as he sees any benefit, he walks towards the light, he walks towards Islam, and otherwise he finds it too hard to handle, he finds it too hard to cope up with, and everything. So so here in these ayat, Allah Ta'ala has told us um, the characteristics and how a hypocrite behaves, and what is what are the ways, and through these strong examples, that how important is the day of judgment, how important is the truth, and how important is embracing the truth when it comes to us, right? So again, like we said, there are different kinds of people, and Allah Ta'ala told us in this whole passage the different kinds of people. He told us believers, and he told us about disbelievers, and then the hypocrites. So one point here is that when we are learning about these ayat at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him the names of the people who were hypocrites at that time. Today we live in a day and age, the Prophet ﷺ is no longer with us, and we cannot know, Wahi is no longer coming. So we cannot know who is a hypocrite and who is not a hypocrite. But at the same time, Allah Ta'ala will show us signs, and He will also inspire believers. You know, like there's a saying that be scared of the firasat of a mu'min because he sees from the nur of Allah. Right? Meaning that be very, very scared of the intuition of a believer, because a believer sees from the light of Allah. What Allah Ta'ala gives is wahi comes to the prophets, but to common people who are believers, Allah Ta'ala also inspires them, and that is called ilham, right? For example, the mother of Musa alayhi salam, she was not a prophet. Obviously, prophets are only they're only men who were prophets, and we know that but we know in through the Quran that Allah Ta'ala inspired her to put the baby in the water. And Allah Ta'ala inspired her to, when the guards were coming to check on, like, because they were looking for newborn babies to kill them, and newborn baby boys to kill them. And Allah Ta'ala inspired her to feed the child, and which was like, usually in a panic situation, any mother would not think of that. At that time, she would try to hide the baby, this and that. But Allah Ta'ala told her to feed the child. But if we think now and we analyze now, that is something that would make the child the quietest, because if the child's feed, otherwise, even if you try to hide the child, this and that, the child might make some noise, and people might come to know that there is a child here. But when the child is feeding, the child is totally quiet, and it's like, you don't know that there's a baby here, right? And that is, and also that helped later on, because when Musa alayhi salam went to was landed at the palace of Pharaoh, and different wet nurses were called to feed, he would not take the feed from any other lady, because Allah Ta'ala had put in him the taste of the feed from his own mother, right, before. And obviously Musa alayhi salam's mother did not know what was going to happen, but Allah Ta'ala made it happen in such a way. He inspired her, and he inspired her to put the baby in the water, which was again something that led to Musa alayhi salam being saved. But at that time, she did not know that. But Allah Ta'ala inspired, Allah Ta'ala gave her the ilham, right, that to do this. And even if we think about the people in the cave later on in the Quran, in Surah Kahf, what happened? Allah Ta'ala inspired them to go seek shelter in the cave. Like, there were people who were planning and plotting to kill them. They are the only believers that are there. Everybody else is around them disbelieves. They're told that they have to renounce, like they have to consider the king of the time as a god, and they as divine and everything, and they're not ready to accept that and everything. And there's a group of young teenagers, and then they have literally like a death sentence being given to them and people are searching for them, and Allah Ta'ala inspired them to take shelter in the cave. So there is, for common people who are believers, Allah Ta'ala gives them ilham. Allah Ta'ala guides them through inspiration. He inspires them. And so when we are dealing with the people, there are two things. First thing is to first and the most important thing when we learn these ayat is to check ourselves. Whenever we learn about nifaq, the first tendency that we as human beings has is think of this person or that person or that person. But the point of the ayat is to first to self-assess. Like, okay, yeah, when I see light, when I see something in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it seems hard, then do I still go ahead? Do I still do I still try to, even if I don't feel like it, do I try to push myself as much as I can? Yes, we are all weak, but do I try to push myself as much as I can, even if I don't feel like it? Or do I or do I try to make excuses and try to like, no, maybe this is not, there are two kinds of behavior. One is there's a command that came. So for example, it's a command of hijab, right? So the command of hijab, somebody might look and say, you know what, it's a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I should try to do it. And then they try to do it and they're like, you know what, I'm just worried about the society or how my friends will react and everything. But in their heart, so they're not doing hijab when they're going out, but in their heart they're feeling, ya Allah, please forgive me, and I want to do hijab, and help me, I want to start doing it, but I'm just too weak and everything. That is one behavior. The other behavior is that they learn about the ayah, they understand it and everything. There's like, but they don't want to do it, and they're like, you know what, it was like mandatory in that time, it is not so important in this time. And they start making all these excuses that, like, I don't really think it is that it is mandatory, and I don't think it means like that. Maybe we can reinterpret it or something. So what's happening? These two behaviors, both of them are not doing it, but inside the heart, different things are happening. So first thing when we learn about the ayat of hypocrisy or disbelief is that what is my state, and to constantly check ourselves and to constantly make dua, because to stay on the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also is something that is something that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was the best of human beings, but he used to make dua, ya muqallibal qulub thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O turner of hearts, keep my heart steadfast on your deen, right? And to ask Allah Ta'ala for taqwa, to ask Allah Ta'ala to keep us firm, to keep our hearts clean. And because what does Allah Ta'ala want from us? Qalbi Salim, right? When we meet him, what he has asked us for is just to have a sound heart. That's what he wants us to meet him with, right? And we, as long as we are making the, and when we check ourselves, if we find that, yes, I am making that effort, then Alhamdulillah, that is a chance to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to be happy about it as well. A believer, one thing is that a believer is happy when they do good deeds. So we don't discredit our own efforts either. Yes, we never think our efforts are enough by themselves to take us to Jannah. Yes, we need the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time, we don't discredit. If when we see something, when a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we understand it, and even though it's hard for us, we are trying whatever we can towards it, then excuse me, then we should be it's a means to make us happy, alhamdulillah. And it's also means to check ourselves. Also, when Allah Ta'ala shows us the signs, when we are dealing with other people, and we'll deal with all kind of people, we'll deal with believers, and we'll also deal with people who might have, first, we don't pass the verdict for anybody that this person is definitely a munafiq, or so we should watch our words, because maybe a behavior seems to us like that, but maybe it's not like that. So be very careful into passing verdict for anybody that this person is definitely a munafiq or this person, because for some people Allah Ta'ala still left a chance open. So even though they are in a dark place, they might just come back. So we don't pass a verdict, nor do we lose hope in people. If we have any friends or family members who are who take one step towards and then two steps back, they take one step towards Islam and then they seem like they're wavering a lot, but means that Allah Ta'ala still left the door open for them, meaning make dua for them and don't lose hope on them. And if somebody's behavior seems clearly, and Allah Ta'ala shows us the sign that it is not trustworthy at all or anything, then we should also we don't pass a verdict, but at the same time we protect ourselves and we listen to the signs that Allah Ta'ala is showing us. We take care of, Allah Ta'ala inspires us, and as long as we are walking in His path, He will protect us. He will show us signs. He will show us who to trust. He will show us who not to trust. Then we should, and He will inspire us. We will know it in our hearts, and then pay attention to that and accept it like that. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people that are true believers, so that when we see the light of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that when He shows us what is the truth, then we are able to stand for it, then we are able to follow it, that we are able to retain our rewards for it, that we don't do something like riyat or showing off and like lose our rewards, or do any sins that displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala be pleased with us and continue to be pleased with us, just like He brought us together as sisters in Islam in this world. May He reunite us as sisters in Islam under the shade of His throne, when there'll be no shade except His, and then once again in Jannatul Firdaus, under like right under His arsh, inshallah ta'ala. And may Allah ta'ala accept our coming together. Any goodness that comes from this talk is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because all goodness belongs to Him and comes from Him. And any mistakes, any shortcomings are mine, as I'm human and open to shortcomings. May Allah ta'ala still accept our coming together. ربنا تقبل منا ومنكم سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.